Hi, this is Vi from Scrapbook Mania, and today I'm going to create a layout using a combination of mixed media. Um, I'm using the paper that I created earlier on an earlier video. Just using a wax transfer. So I took my embossing folder and I embossed some wax paper, and I transferred that wax onto my white piece of just plain paper, cardstock. And actually this is not cardstock, this is just plain 12 by 12 paper. And then I went over it with a brayer and some distressing ink. So I'm going to be using that for my background. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to be using some hand cut leaves that I created. I'm also going to be using a Prima stamp, my Martha Stewart stamp. This is the one that has like birds on it. I'm also going to be using some punches. So I'm going to use one of these EK Success punch, and also I have another small little punch by Fiskars that I'm going to be using for the centers. And I am going to be using another set of stamps. I'm not sure what the name of these stamps, but this stamp and possibly maybe these stamps. And the last thing I'm going to be using is, let me get that out, Technique Tuesday. And these are an old retired stamp from Technique Tuesday, and I'm going to be using these as well, and some color pencils. So let me go ahead and get started. So how I cut the leaves is I just filled it up a piece of paper and then just cut it in a semicircle. That what created a leaf. And now I'm just coloring those petals, and those are Technique Tuesday old stamp. And I know now they have a smaller version of the same stamp, which I have not seen at my scrapbooking store, but there is a smaller version of the stamp. And I'm just using my color pencils to color the leaves or the petals. And the trick with using color pencils is that you want to color on the side. Notice that I have it at almost at a flat angle as I color my leaves, so that way, and you want a light touch. You don't want to really put a lot of pressure when you are using them to color your images. So you're just going to cut them out, and I'm cutting them one by one. And this layout is perfect for using up all your scraps, and that's what I did. I went into my pink bin and I just grabbed a bunch of colors that would match my base page, and that's what I used to color my leaves. Now I'm using these stamps, and I'm not sure who makes these stamps, but any kind of stamp that has like a branch or flowers will work well. And then I'm using coffee. It's called Coffee, the brown color, and it's by Memento ink. And I'm doing kind of stamping once and then again to create that shadow effect that you see there. And then now I'm just kind of using some more of my stamps, and I'm going to be using that flower. And I'm getting a darker distressing ink, so I'm using the aged mahogany to stamp some flowers within the branches. And then I decided I wanted to put a little line, and sorry that my head is in the way, but I'm using the color pencils, and I'm just creating a line around my page, as you can see there. And I think that gave a nice definition. So now I'm just taking some more of that brown ink, and I'm just putting ink around the edges of my petals. And then I decided to use my color pencils to kind of create an outline and then some veins on my leaf. And this is kind of the mixed media piece of my layout. It's basically just doodling on the leaves, and also, hand cutting the leaves, and kind of using my color pencils to kind of create outline and also veins. And I really like how it came out. It really made the leaves, because I'm just using the black color pencil to outline the leaves, and then using the brown to do the veins. So I'm going to do that to every single of my leaves. And the black color pencil almost looks like charcoal, like if I was using a charcoal pen. So here I'm just kind of arranging all my petals to see how I want to place them. And I have a general idea how I want them, and then I'm using the decoupage, this homemade decoupage, that it's 50% water and then 50% glue. And it's actually Elmo glue, and I was able to find some acid-free Elmo glue for this Mod Podge. And I think the next time I might do it less watery. I might put a bigger ratio of glue to water. And then you're just gonna put those petals around in a semicircle, as you can see there. And then I'm using the stamp petals that I just created and colored. That's gonna be on the center. So now what I did is, you see all those little flowers. So I do have a tiny little punch, one in the EK Success, and then the other punch was actually one that I found in the dollar bin at one of my craft stores. I think it was at Michael. And I'm just using my embossing tool to kind of make some dimension on these flowers to cuff them up. And then I'm just using regular glue. This is very tacky glue to place my black flowers first, and then in the centers of the black flowers I'm going to put my brown little flowers, and they almost look like the center of a real daisy or a real flower. So now I'm ready to stamp my bird. So I'm going to stamp my the Martha Stewart bird, and I'm putting some tape because I don't really want the branch, I just want the bird. And I actually switched out the bird, because once I stamped it, or I actually placed it on the page, it was facing the opposite side, and I wanted to face towards the flower. So I'm going to stamp another bird and on a different cream color cardstock, and I'm using my watercolor pencils to, and not actually my color pencils, not watercolor pencils. I'm using my color pencils to color my bird, and as you can see, I'm doing the same technique, putting not a lot of pressure, and just going over the bird lightly with my color pencils. So now I'm just going to cut it out, making sure that I cut off the branch, because I don't really need the branch, I just need the bird. And I'm just going to place it right. If you like, instead of glue, you can use some dimensional adhesive to pop it off the page. What you can do with these Studio 112 stamp that are like this. I found this at Joann's. And at first when I saw it, because it's one piece, I was thinking you kind of restricted a little bit on the size, because as one unit, you know, I only could make a square. Let's see if I can match it up. I'm kind of limited on the size of my square. And it works pretty nice. I mean, if this is the size of square that you want, then that's fine. But I always like to kind of get a little more out of whatever I buy. So I was thinking that if I wanted to make a bigger square, let's say I want to have that on a 12 by 12 layout, and on the edges of my 12 by 12 or 8 by 8 or whatever layout, I wouldn't be able to do it because it's kind of one unit. So what you can do is, like this one, it was the same way. So I cut the corner off, And now, if let's say I want to make this whole a border on this whole paper, then what I can do is I can do my borders first, my corners first, just like the Martha Stewart punch around the page. And I got the idea from like that tool, the Martha Stewart tool. Okay, so now I have all my 4 borders stamped. Now I'm going to take the next piece of the frame, and I can line it up because it's clear. I can easily line it up and just go down the page. Of course, I'll do a better job than what I'm doing here because I'm kind of going out of, offline. But you're just going to make sure you kind of keep it straight and see how I can make my frame any size I want because I was able to cut it out. So, I mean, you get the gist of it. Okay, so let me show you how you want to do that. So what you do is you take the frame or the stamp, and notice that you want to cut it evenly. So that way, when I cut this one, I kind of counted, there was some circles here, 1, 2, 3, and then I counted 1, 2, 3, and I cut it right there. So that's how I cut that piece. I kind of counted it and make sure it was even. So for this one, it will be the same way. So I want to cut it right, so that way, see how it's cut right there on part of that image there? So I really want to cut this probably right here, half of it here. So that way when I do go from this side and I stamp this, it will kind of match up to here. Okay, so let me go ahead and cut it. Okay, now I'm going to measure it. I'm going to see how it's there. See how it's kind of, I was able to stamp it there. Now let's go ahead and make sure that we can match it up. And see, it matches perfectly, as you can see there. Okay, so just if you wanted to, if you see these stamps, these are $1 at Michael's, or I found this one at Joann's. Don't pass them up. You can easily use them to create bigger frames than just the little square right there. So now I'm using that stamp to create a frame around my mat. And then after I create the frame, I'm going to go ahead and use my Martha Stewart to kind of emboss the edges. And I'm just kind of measuring where I need to put my emboss lines. So that's why you see me flipping the page up and then putting it backwards. And as you can see, there's my, sorry that my head is in the way again, but you can really see the emboss line, and then you're just going to cut in a little bit towards the inside of that emboss line. And then I'm just cutting out the shape of the frame. And now I'm going to put my pictures onto the frame. So now I need to create a little journaling area. So that's what I took this stamp and I created my journaling square, and then I'm going to use some more color pencils to kind of color the outline of that journaling square. And originally I was going to put it on the frame, but you'll see in a little bit that I end up putting it someplace else. So now I want to use my mixed media doll, and this is one of the Julie Nutties doll, and this is Riley. This is her second edition of these dolls. So I went ahead and stamped Riley, but this time I didn't really want to go through the hassle of the paper piecing, and I also wanted to use my markers to color her in, because I really didn't want to. There's a lot of colors and a lot of different pattern papers already on this layout, and I really didn't want to kind of put some more pattern onto my doll. So I'm just kind of coloring her skin tone, and then I'm using these big markers to color her hair and also her dress. And they work pretty well. I really like these big markers. They're alcohol-based ink, so you can also use some alcohol blending solution if you want to kind of remove some colors. But as you can see, it's pretty easy. You just go with the lighter color, and then you go over it with the dark color on the edges, and then go over it again with the lightest color. And it really blends very nicely. So, and I'm just coloring her shoes because when I stamped, her shoes were not that dark. So I'm done with my coloring, and now I'm just gonna cut her out. And notice that I moved the paper instead of my scissors. You should keep your scissors straight, just move the paper, and that will give you a better cut if you do that. So then I wanted to put a little flower. Actually, I wanted to put a bow, but then I decided just to put a little paper flower right there on the middle of her sash. And then I'm just going to place her on the frame, and see that journaling square, I kept moving it around on my page, but I end up placing that on top of my paper next to the cherish. So I thought that the doll looks very nice there on the frame next to my large flowers. And so I decided to give it a little bit of dimension with this foam tape. And then I wanted to kind of put another paper in the background just to give it a little sturdiness. And then I decided to kind of do a distress look on my paper by using this distressing tool, and then using a foot file to kind of rough up the edges. And I was going to use pink, but then I decided, because I have a lot of brown and black, that it actually would look nicer if I went ahead and used a brown cardstock as my base. And I think it came out pretty nice using brown instead of pink, which was my original idea. So I was going to cut out the cherish, and as you can see, I cut it out and then I distressed it. But then when I put it on the layout, I just didn't like how it looked. So you'll see in a moment that I'm going to go ahead and just decide to just stamp it. Because it just kind of, it was off the page or off the block, and it just needed something for that corner. And I really didn't like how it looked with that there. So I'm just going through my pre-cut embellishments and trying to figure out something for that corner. In the meantime, I'm just coloring my butterfly with some more color pencils. And then here I decide, as you can see, just to stamp the cherish right on top of the journaling spot. And then use some more of the flowers that I use for the center of my large flower to put it around the sentiment there. So I'm done with the page, and as you can see, I'm just giving you a close look at all the pieces. And I do go over off camera with some white acrylic paint, very diluted white acrylic paint, and I go over the flower just to tone it down because the flowers were distracting from my mixed media doll. So here, another close-up look to all my embellishments. I hope you liked the tutorial and thank you for watching. Bye now.